Is Gen Z the hardest working generation? Let's talk about it. By the end of this video, you're going to be ready to inspire your Gen Z team members to share with you their hardest work and their greatest results. We'll take a look at if Gen Z is or is not the hardest working generation. We'll discuss the most helpful way to look at this question, and I'll give you some specific tips on how to inspire Gen Zers to give their best work to you and your business. Let's start by answering the question. Is Gen Z the hardest working generation? No, they're not. And no generation is. This is one of those types of questions that might be fun to bat around and debate, but doesn't have a clear answer and also doesn't really matter in the answer because it's looking backward. You're talking about a result. A result has already occurred. It's the past. You can learn from it, but you can't change it. I think a really helpful way to look at this question is through the lens of behavior, because behavior looks forward. And so let's take a look at the behavior that sort of characterizes Gen Z's work to understand what hard work means for them and what kind of future they're looking at as a result of that hard work. Now, it's important to understand that every generation faces unique challenges based upon when it's born into the arc of history, and then as far as work goes, when they enter the full-time adult-aged workforce. Like, I'm Gen X. The challenges that I encountered in the first 10 years of my career are not the same challenges that Gen Zers are encountering in the first 10 years of their career right now. And so comparing how hard I worked and Gen X worked to how hard Gen Z needs to work to navigate the challenges of their time, you can't really make a clear one-to-one comparison. What you can do, though, is take a look at what Gen Z is experiencing on its own merit, and as leaders of older generations, not force them to have to abide by the same approaches that we did. Because I'll be the first one to say that as a Gen Xer, the things that were most effective for me in the first 10 years of my career probably are not the things that are going to be most effective for Gen Zers in the first 10 years of their career. It's really tempting, especially for Gen Xers who can be highly judgmental, speaking from personal experience here. It's tempting for us to say, no, you have to go through exactly what I did in order to be worthy, in order to be hardworking. You have to climb the ladder one rung at a time because that's what I did. Well, do they? Is that what's really best for the time that they're in? That's the kind of empathy and nuance that I find is the best way for leaders to approach this type of question. So let's apply that nuance and look at the fact that regardless of how hard Gen Z works or doesn't work right now, one thing that is true is they're going to have to work really hard for a really long time. You know, in the year 2026, they're roughly between 14 and 29 years old. Assuming they live a full natural life up to like 80 years or above, they've got a lot of years left to go through, and that's going to involve a lot of work. We're also in a particularly challenging economic environment, social and global political environment, and that adds a lot of difficulty and a lot of complexity to the life experience of everyone, including Gen Zers. So what we do know for sure when we look at the future is that Gen Z is going to have to work hard for a really long time to come. Also, us as leaders, in our efforts to get the best work they have to give from them and give them the most satisfying rewards in response, it's really helpful to understand that at the heart of their relationship with employment is a need for safety. They want to know that they can be physically, financially, and psychologically safe in the present and long into the future. And so if we are able to align what we offer them and how we support them and lead them with that need for safety, we will have the clearest pathway to getting the greatest results from them. Now, for those who are watching thinking, I don't want to do that. Why should I give them what they need, especially because it wasn't what I needed when I was their age? I want you to think about this. If you're a leader of people in a business, your essential function is to decrease the distance between you and your goals, the numbers you have to deliver. And you're going to use human resources to achieve those goals. When you approach a Gen Zer, or anyone of any generation, but when you approach a Gen Zer in ways that you know do not align with what motivates them, you are increasing the distance between you and the numbers you have to deliver. You are adding friction, obstacles to that process. Why would you do that? There's no valid business logic that supports deliberately adding obstacles, adding friction to the process of achieving your goals. So in the process of making a Gen Zer's life easier, make your own life easier. Remove obstacles, reduce friction, and approach them in ways that will drive their best work for your organization. If you were intrigued by this video, which is really about motivating Gen Zers, which is something that happens inside of them, you'll probably be fascinated by my video on what happens outside of Gen Zers, which is about what does Gen Z wear to work. You can click on the link in the description of this video and it'll take you there. I dig into what do they wear to work, and frankly, when does it matter and when does it not matter. I'll see you there.